Hello everyone, this is going to be my wrap-up and kind of mini TBR for April and May. I read like 3,500 pages. There was a kind of a stretch in the middle where I didn't read that much because I had a bunch of final exams and papers and stuff. But still, good reading month. My average rating for the month can be found by adding up the rating of all my books and dividing by the amount of books I read. Anyway, that's another code for I forgot to calculate it. But it wasn't as good as a reading month as the last couple have been. But it had a really good start, and it was really one book stood way above the others that I read this month. Let's get into it. The first book I finished in April was The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. Continuing the Robin Hobb hype train. Not quite as hype as the last few books. This was, of the Tawny Man trilogy, this was my least favorite, but still a 9.1 out of 10. I still thought it was great. Robin Hobb is so good at evoking emotion, fits such well-realized characters. The relationships are just so well written. The dialogue is fantastic. I've said it before, I'll say it again. No one is better at capturing relationships through dialogues and how people talk to people differently and how it reflects not just the person talking, but how they see the person they're talking to. This did feel like it had a tiny bit of middle book syndrome, where there were sections kind of in, I don't know, this part of the book that maybe felt a touch repetitive. And sometimes the plot kind of maybe a touch aimless, but there's so much good in this that overshadows any flaws I had with it. So still loved the ever-loving crap out of the book. Surprising, very, very few people didn't like it as much as Fool's Errand, but still wonderful start to the month. After that was the very divisive The Burning God, the final book in the Poppy War trilogy, which is one of the most divisive books I've ran into. And overall, I didn't like it as much as the Dragon Republic, and I'm not sure where it's basically tied with the Poppy War. So a lot of the people found parts with like military tactics a bit tedious and one part overly convenient. I didn't really have any problems with that. If anything, my problem with that sounds petty, but it was just so relentless that it made it actually significantly lower my enjoyment of the book compared to the Dragon Republic. And that is that R.F. Kuang in this book keeps ending scenes in the middle of conversations just when someone says a one-liner. Instead of actually so we never see the response to what the people say there. They just end like that. And it's like every other scene change, if not more. There's probably multiple per chapter. I forget how many chapters the books are, but it happens just a pathetic amount. And that's a small complaint, but it annoyed me. Anyway, I still really enjoy Rin's character. I still think the side characters aren't incredibly well fleshed out, but I've said that before, that I think the format of this book is basically took the content of this series took the content of an 8-book series with 20 different POVs and was just now let's just tell the story of this one person and just make it a trilogy with an insane amount of content. And when you go in that format, you kind of inherently sacrifice the depth of the side characters. Overall, 8 out of 10, same rating as the Poppy War. Dragon Republic was my favorite of the trilogy. R.F. Kuang is very confident in the preface, where she says the readers will require a bucket for the tears. I did not require a bucket for my tears. I just don't care enough about the people involved. I think the characters are very interesting, but I wasn't particularly invested in them. Kuang still does incredible research, and the way she's conveying the ideas and themes is really interesting. Still not a huge fan of the dialogue. especially people need to stop talking in fights here. It's just, please. You have many strengths as an author, R.F. Kuang. You're way smarter than me in a lot of ways. And you wrote a great trilogy, and I really enjoyed it. But please stop writing people talking during fights. It's not your strength. Please stop. Anyway, still enjoyed the book. And after this, I went into my favorite book of the month, by far. And, I mean, you guess what it is based on how my reading schedule is. So it is rare to find a book that hits all of the emotions. But Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb, the final book of the Tawny Man trilogy, really hit all of the emotions. And continued what Robin Hobb has been doing for 6 books, and became one of my favorite books ever. Again, making this easily the best 6-book stretch I've ever read. For a long time, I've been saying the best 6-book stretch I've read in fantasy was Small Favor through Skin Game in Dresden. That's book 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I didn't think that would get beaten until Stormlight 6 came out, but this beat it easily. And this is a 9.6 out of 10. Fool's Errand is still barely my favorite in the series, but holy damn. I think I like the start of Fool's Errand a little bit more. There's one character that gets, really my only thing that could be interpreted as any kind of complaint for this book is there's one character that gets a huge amount of focus in this book. Probably more than anyone other than Fitz and the Fool. I don't think it's a spoiler to say those characters are in here. It's first person from Fitz, and the book is called Fool's Fate. So, anyway. But there's another character who probably gets the third most attention, who's not my favorite in the series. Still very good, because it's Robin Hobb writing a Fitz book. But, anyway, and then this book coming down the stretch, man. Triumph, pain, all of the emotions, everywhere in between. Brilliant trilogy. Robin Hobb continues to amaze with this, and this really is what turned what would be maybe like a slightly above average reading month into a really good reading month, just because any month where I have a 9.6 out of 10 is kind of just by default good. Especially since there's also a lot of other books I like. After this, the next book after this was really good too, but then the last 2 I didn't like as much as the first 4, but we'll get to that. Anyway, can't recommend Robin Hobb enough to character-driven readers who want just brilliant prose. I love the way when she's describing things, it's always dynamic. I don't know how to describe it. I almost want to just go to the start of a chapter and see what it says. No, never mind. Anyway, just everything about Robin Hobb's prose. It's so elegant. It's so evocative. It's just brilliant. Anyway, this is predictable. You all knew this was going to happen. Whatever. Next up, which I have a review for on my channel, is The House of the Cerulean Sea. And I forgot to mention before, I don't know if I should do a Tawny Man review. I don't know how many people, I'm a pretty small channel, so I don't know how many people here have actually read Farseer. I guess it's a pretty well-known series, but there would be no point talking about Tawny Man without, having Farseer spoilers, basically. Other than what I say in the wrap-up. For the spoiler-free section, it would be this. It's brilliant. You should read it. Especially if you're, a character-driven reader who likes slow pacing. So let me know in the comments if you want a Tawny Man review. I'm probably going to make a Tawny Man review. I want to talk about Tawny Man. Anyway, but whatever. Anyway, but it would have to have Farseer spoilers. Anyway, next was The House in the Cerulean Sea. Because basically, I came from The Burning God, which is not exactly a happy book. And then the conclusion to a Fitz trilogy, also not a particularly happy book. So I had this planned to read a happy book. And, I have a review for it, and, I really liked it. It was extremely wholesome, but also well written. I think Linus just has a very distinctive voice, good character development. A lot of the side characters have distinct voices. Some of them are a bit, everything in this book is over the top, but it's, deliberately over the top. Like, as I said, the main character, his guidebook for where he works is all caps, rules and regulations, and it's like 700 pages. It's over the top. It's supposed to be. It was what it was trying to be. It did a good job. Was it very predictable? Yeah. But you know what? Read it in 2 days. I don't really read books in 2 days if I'm not enjoying them. Granted, it's a very short book with pretty big font, but I just thought it was really good. If you need a feel-good book, I would recommend this one. After that, I have to announce with regret that the Hobb hype train has come to a stop with Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb. Anyway, this was fine. Obviously, like, I really wanted to love it. I knew Rain Wilds was considered her least popular series, but I mean, I did just read 6 books by the author back to back, with all of them being like a 9 out of 10 or higher. So I was like, maybe it'll be worse and just be like an 8 out of 10. I think I gave it like a 5.5 out of 10. The characters were distinctive, but I was neither interested in them or invested in them. Like, I'm used to slow pacing from Hobb, but this was really slow. Anyway, like, it wasn't bad. Like, the characters, as I said, they were very distinctive, and the writing is fantastic, and it's very atmospheric, but this was a bit rough to go through. It just wasn't particularly compelling, unfortunately. I really wanted it to be, but alas, the Hobb hype train lasted 6 books. It did not make it to 7. Hopefully, at some point, the Hobb hype train, it's gone up in the air. It can do a 360 and land perfectly on the track and continue at some point in the future. We still got 6 books to go. Plenty of time to regain, start Hobb hype train 2, Electric Boogaloo, but yeah, this was pretty disappointing. I was kind of like, I wasn't expecting it to be Tawny Man, but I was like, it'll probably be like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, and it was just disappointing. Like, I think it says a lot that you read Hobb for the characters. Like, the world build, it's funny, this maybe probably Live Ship, but other than Live Ship, the best start in terms of world building, but, like, who reads Hobb for the world building? And I have never, of all the people talking about Robin Hobb, I've never met a Realm of the Elderlings fan who has a Rain Wilds character as their favorite character. Yeah, I don't really see any that contend with it. My favorite scene in this book, by far, was a cameo from Live Ship characters. And it was really good, because the Live Ship characters. But, anyway, even 3 books later, Live Ship can be so good, it makes Rain Wilds better. Read Live Ship. I somehow turned this into hype about Live Ship. I turn everything into hype about Live Ship now. Anyway, also, since I did mention Tawny Man, love Tawny Man. Live Ship is still my favorite trilogy of the first 3. Tawny Man is close-ish, and then a pretty big gap to Farseer. And hopefully Rain Wilds can turn things around. I have heard lots of people say that this is their least favorite of the 4. Also seen lots of people say the second is their least favorite of the 4. Most people seem to like book 3 and 4 more. Please? Maybe? Potentially? We'll see. Fits in the Fool will come in clutch at the end, if it has to. So, to close out the month, I went in pacing, storytelling, prose, really in all ways a story that's basically the opposite of Rain Wilds, and that is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. This was a fun read that didn't really emotionally hit me at all, but I will say, full credit to this book, I was not bored for a single chapter of this book. Like, every chapter, it's plotted really well. I don't find the writing style to be particularly evocative in terms of emotions, but anyway, like, this book is more Sanderson-like than Sanderson books. Like, if you think of all the stereotypes that you associate with a Sanderson book, like, really hard magic systems that are really more different science than actually, like, magic, and you've got, like, usually a world with some, like, upper class, and, Maybe you got a height. This was very similar to the Final Empire. Like, it's even more. Like, the magic is even more basically just different science. It's a heist set in a city that's somewhat Luthadel-like. Yeah, if this author claims he's not a fan of the Final Empire, I don't believe him. And it's just, like, I'm not saying it, like, copied things. The idea is they're not unoriginal. They're stylistically incredibly similar. Not, like, the same content. So I'm not saying, like, Robert Jackson Bennett copied from the Final Empire. I'm saying stylistically, it's a very, very similar read to the Final Empire. If you, like, I would recommend this not just to people who like Sanderson, because I think Sanderson's just a very good storyteller. Like, there are lots of people I know who are more fans of, like, grimdark fantasy or low magic fantasy or, like, you know, the kind of Abercrombie, A Song of Ice and Fire brand of fantasy, but they still love Stormlight because Stormlight. I would say to those people, maybe stay away from Foundryside, but if Sanderson's style of storytelling, like weird worlds, the way he does magic systems, the way he kind of plots things, his style of characters, his very straightforward writing, is your preferred style of storytelling and books, then I would recommend this book, because I think stylistically, it's very similar to Sanderson. Anyway, I wasn't like... His prose, while it was very straightforward, it wasn't particularly evocative, as I already said. But this is kind of... Like I said, this is the opposite of Assassin's Quest. Like, Assassin's Quest, there were times when I was bored, but also times that got strong emotional reactions. This was the opposite. I was never bored this book. Every chapter is compelling. It's a really fun story. It's tight. It's well plotted. The characters are compelling, like they're not like bland or anything. I don't think they're like the best characters I've ever read, but they're fun. I think I gave this like a 7.4 out of 10. I'm trying to edit, Kat. You're getting added to the video, so all the people know that you made editing harder by sitting on me. This is what she does. She just sits on me when I'm sitting back in my chair. Also, return of Squeaks McChair. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this interruption from Squeaks McChair and Vin and editing me. You can now get back to enjoying the chaotic video. Hello, Kat. It was solidly a good book. It's probably not going to be one that sticks with me for a long time. Like, if you tell me, like, oh, what were the really, like, great scenes in this book in, like, 6 months, I'm probably not going to be able to tell you. This had the cool factor where it's like you read things and it's like, oh, that's interesting, that's cool, but not like, you know, the yes or like crying. Anyway, still enjoyed reading it. Pretty good stuff. And also I will mention that I want the matching Shorefall, but it hasn't come out yet, so Shorefall's probably not going to get read for quite a while. But whatever. I'm going to quickly go over my TBR for the next month. It's going to be short, though. So, quick TBR for May. I'm not making an entire video about TBRs, because I don't want to. I'm reading Tigana right now. I was going to read Dragonhaven, but I wanted to read Tigana. And I'm really liking Tigana. Guy Gavriel K has to go to hoarding jail. Like, ugh. Anyway, Tigana's great so far. Really interesting. Super rich world. Compelling characters. Gorgeous writing. We're moving on. Then I will be reading the rest of the Rainwild Chronicles. Hopefully they're good. Everybody wish me luck. I might read stuff in between those. I don't know. Depends on what my mood. Because I'm not going to read Shorefall anymore. And that's what I was going to read in between these two. And I was supposed to read Tigana in between these two. But I'm reading it now. We'll see. I might end up reading 3 Rainwild's books back to back. I also might not want to if they're not good. And end up rereading Dresden books. Don't hurt me. I like Dresden. Anyway, then I don't have the physical books. I have these on an e-reader. But I will be starting the Red Rising trilogy. And I will be starting the Fitz and the Fool trilogy. I have 2 of the books here, not all of them. I don't think I'm going to read all of them. But I should be able to start the Fitz and the Fool trilogy and Red Rising in May. And then I'll be alternating between those 3 books. And probably finishing both relatively early in June. That's my May TBR. Hopefully the books are good. The Rainwild stuff might not go to plan. These Fitz and the Fool books are probably going to get pushback because I'll randomly reread P-Stocks in Battleground, and then something will happen in Battleground, and I'll be like, hey, I should reread Small Favor, and then something in Small Favor will happen that'll make me reread Changes, and then something in Changes will happen, and then I'll be like, I have to read Ghost Story in Cold Days, then something in Cold Days will remind me of an early book, and I'll start from Deathmask. I was supposed to not read Dresden this year. It might happen. It might not. We'll see if I'm mentally strong enough to not reread Dresden. That's how I'm going to end the video. This is just a normal TBR here on the channel. We like to keep things very well organized and structured. Have a nice day, everyone.